have this distinguished panel with me, and they represent different industries. So you have financial services, a bank, you have social sector, Teach for India, you have hospitality, and then you have Radio City, which all of us know, right? So what we are going to do in this particular session is a little different from what I did. I tried to present some findings which are in a way very sketchy, right? They talked about what seemed to be underlying principles without really going into details of any specific practice. And I'm sure you didn't feel satiated hearing me. So what we're going to do is, we're going to talk about practices that are relevant, effective, sustainable in these organizations, and which also represent smart and effective cross-pollination. So as I said, our research says that if you try and adopt and adapt something which doesn't fit your purpose, it's not going to work. So we're going to ask these ladies and gentlemen to share with us what did they do which was meaningful and relevant, how did they go about implementing it, and how they made it effective and sustainable. So let me start with Sagarika, who's on my immediate left.
So sometime back, we had this whole issue of accountability, building accountability in the organization. So what we realized is that, here we all at the senior level, why other people, senior management is so accountable, but why people down the line are not accountable. What we realized, we looked within, what we realized is that who is formulating the strategy? Actually, we are the ones in the close to the senior management, the CEO is making the strategy. And expecting that people down the line should be accountable. So, which can never happen because it's not shared, right? I mean, they don't see, even it's shared, but they don't see that what contribution I can make, or was I a part of formulating this strategy. So what we did next time was involve middle management, and we could see some change, but not all. We used to, those days, some 5-6 years back, we used to achieve only 60% target of our target. So we went down to the next level. We moved probably to 70-80, but that wasn't enough. So what we did is, and which is a practice that we are doing for last 4-5 years now, we involve, it's a 3-month exercise for us, setting up the strategy. We involve the people down the line to the zonal head. The first level of strategy that is made is by my junior most level, which is a bottom-up approach that we followed, junior most level to the zonal heads, and then it comes to the finally to the functional head, and we formulate the strategy. And was that enough that, will that ensure that my person in the was the junior most in the rank would know finally what the strategy is? We ensure that it is communicated. 3-4 levels of communication. First is through the, the immediate manager who is sitting in the review or formulating the final strategy, goes down and communicates. CEO communicates through the town hall. Now, the communication has happened. So do I know whether this person who is an executive, does he understand? Because he is the one, ultimately, he is also part of delivering that objective. So, our vision statement is making life more entertaining. So even if it is a serious thing, we have an element of entertainment. So we started this quiz called City in Sync, which is after every review, after every town hall, there's a small 10-question thing which is sent out to everybody, and whichever station, we have 15 stations across India, so whichever station scores the highest, which means that people have understood the objectives of the organization, what are the priorities of the organization. So, was that enough? We built in the entire recognition scheme according to that. There is a recognition scheme, but every year we include those organization imperative things that each one of us need to focus on. So these are within the system, what we try and do is make the small changes so that it's relevant for that work.
So were they inspired by some external, some other organization?
Here I would say it did not inspire from the external agency or corporates, we started evaluating people, we started questioning ourselves and asked why and then how to do it. So, but of course there are a lot of other, quite a few of our practices that we have borrowed, but did I exactly implement the same thing? I haven't. I have tweaked it and made it relevant to my organization.
So Vinay, you are in a completely different sector, right? So can you share with us something like this where you have cross-pollinated some idea but it has turned out very good?
Well, I believe that HR processes also follow a product life cycle. So, when you are talking about sustainability, the effort is always to keep you going and preventing from the curve from falling. Because you invent something or you cross-pollinate something, bring in a practice, it creates a wow initially, and it goes to the next level where it has already become an hygiene, because employees say, हाँ ये तो होता है अपने यहाँ. And then at a certain stage you start observing a plateau, and grievances start emerging around this hygiene factors. And that's the challenge which we look at whenever we try to adopt or adapt anything which we are bringing from the outside, whether it is best practices, research, whether it is based on experiences in other companies of the managers who have joined us, and so on. So we have to be very careful on this front. One such example I will give is there are two polarized views on, all of you will agree, about the bell curve, the famous bell curve.
Absolutely.
And I believe that in certain context it will work, and when the context is over it will not work. And the organization which will have an effective, sustainable performance management system is the one which will keep the system from deteriorating from hygiene to a grievance. So it's sometimes good to notice this and work on evidence-based management. I borrow this concept from a book I read by Pfeffer, which says that it's very easy for us to talk about what will work here in 2 tables. And managers often fall prey to the fact that if it has worked in my previous company, it will work here. So you have to be very careful on this. It's something like somebody goes to a doctor and the previous patient has stomach pain and the doctor said, yeah, you have appendicitis and you should be operated. And the second patient goes, he also has stomach pain, and without going through any tests, he says also, you also has to be operated. So it's not something which will work in an organization. So maybe a bell curve has worked in your previous company, it may not work here. Or it has not worked in your previous company, but still it may work here. So it's the concept which you have to drive to a sustainable sense, which I feel is very important. To give an example of what we have used effectively is a practice where we certify our managers. Basically, this practice is very prevalent in the software industry. It's also prevalent in skill-based industries. And we thought that our branch managers who are homegrown, who grow from a simple graduate trainee to become a team leader after a while, and then they take over as a branch manager, need to be certified. And we have used a concept around this certification processes from other industries, and it's been very effective.
So before we move to that, just one quick question. So how effective do you find and what has made it effective? Because as you said, it is really an idea from software and skill-based industries, not from financial services. So why is it work?
We were actually looking at it from the product life cycle curve, as I said. We were looking at how to make homegrown talent as capable as talent which is hired from the B schools. Because the talent which comes from B schools, they go through induction process which lasts for about 18 months, and then these people are made ready to take over the first managerial position. Whereas the people who have joined from the graduate colleges take a little longer, and then they are struggling to be successful because they have not gone through any conceptual input in their educational life cycle. They have the experience, they don't have the exposure, and they don't have the knowledge. So we said that we will blend the two and then make them as capable as what we are hiring from the outside. Today I think both the streams of people are competing well in our company because of this certification.
Gayatri, you come from a completely different sector, right? As we were sitting in the room chatting, you said that you really had to borrow smartly from the corporate sector because most of the HR practice, right? Because we all have, by definition, being focused on your beneficiaries. So why don't you share a couple of things that you think you all have smartly adopted?
Sure. Like Anirudh said, we've actually borrowed everything from the corporate sector for the for-profit sector and adapted that to our context and to the culture that Teach for India stands for. So one of the things that I was thinking about sharing with all of you is a simple appraisal process, right? When we started off Teach for India, nobody even thought that our employees need to have a conversation every 6 months at least on how they're performing, what they need to be doing better, where they're not meeting goals. But we said, can we take this simple practice and actually turn it into a Teach for India culturally aligned system? So we don't call it an appraisal process, it's a leadership development conversation. It starts off with, obviously which everybody else does, you introspecting and understanding where you've performed, but the whole focus is not, have you met your goals, are you performing, do you need to be promoted or not? But the whole thinking and the premise of going through this process is, what are the skills that I need to develop to become a better professional? What are the competencies, mindsets, attitudes that I need to develop to become a better human being? Our focus a lot is on how do we develop leaders who will either stay within Teach for India or join sectors outside, stay within education, but ultimately be focused on education equity. So how do we build that commitment within people? So while we have of course a spreadsheet which has all of this now moving on to a different system, but the idea is to reflect and introspect and then get feedback from others. So the way our 360-degree appraisals work is we sit around the table with our teams, with our peers and with your manager and get face-to-face feedback on things that have gone well, things that haven't gone well. So the first time I sat in on one of this, just bear in mind I had come into the non-profit sector with 10 years of working in consulting and banking, had no idea what I was getting myself into. But my first appraisal session was with giving feedback to our CEO, my manager. And I said, oh my goodness, how am I going to sit around a table and tell her areas that I think she needs to actually do better? And thankfully I didn't go first or I would have spoken nonsense, but people before me gave really solid feedback. They said, when you're working with people, your body language is saying this while your words say something else, they're not matching, you need to work on that. She took notes, she summarized at the end of it saying, this is what I'm going to the board with as feedback from my team and all of you, and I'm going to ask them to hold me accountable to this. 6 months later, she said, guys, this is what I worked on. Have I made any progress? Is there anything else that I need to be doing? And this completely blew my mind. I said, this is what Teach for India is. We're open, we're transparent, we can help people develop. It's not about pulling somebody else down to do better.
I would say this is a classical example of really adopting and adapting a practice which is so culturally aligned. Most organizations in the corporate sector would really shy away from having this face-to-face 360-degree feedback, right? more often than not, it is a